Hello, this is my 8-Bits, and this is my review of Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 2. After finishing Sonic 4 Episode 1, I was excited for what the sequel could bring. After playing Episode 2, then going back to 1, then playing 2 again, I realized a couple things. Firstly, I regret giving Episode 1 an 8.5 out of 10, it doesn't deserve that high of a score. Second is the makeup of pretty much the rest of this review. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 is a mediocre, barely above average, kind of meh type of a game. Basically, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 right now because that's what I think it deserves, and I think that a numerical representation is just about as comprehensive and nuanced as the game itself. If you're just watching for the score, feel free to stop now, but if you would like to hear more, please keep watching. Right after playing Episode 2, I went to start writing this review, and to my surprise, I couldn't. Not because I didn't play the game fully or have feelings about it or any of that, but because I couldn't really remember anything about the game. I played through a few levels again and some boss fights again and then sat down to write the review, and I still couldn't. A few hours later I played the first episode again and then followed it up with 2 to see how it contrasted, and while things were definitely changed, I couldn't really tell if 2 were better for those changes. For one, Episode 2 does look better. Sonic has lost whatever sheen that made him shiny in the first episode, and the levels are more detailed. The soundtrack, however, is awful. The music, when not bland, physically hurts to listen to, and the boss track in particular loops constantly. That really hurts to say because the Sonic series, even with its crappiest games, usually has great music. Secondly, the game's physics have been changed from Episode 1, and they are better. Sonic has more believable momentum and weight, and it does overall feel better than the first episode and its anti-gravity shenanigans. It's really just a shame that the game's levels aren't good enough for the update to the physics. Sonic 4 Episode 2's levels are just simply kinda there. Though there are some questionable choices, the levels overall aren't badly designed, but there are only about 2 that really stand out as fun. Incidentally, there are 2 levels that have Tails flying the tornado, which also stand out, but not in a good way. The game isn't as fast-paced as the first episode, and does have better physics, but the levels don't have good enough platforming to really take advantage of those qualities. They aren't particularly a chore to get through, but as soon as you do, you won't really remember that you had, except for the time spent. The addition of Tails, like the levels, is also underwhelming. For the most part, using Tails to fly seems more like a double jump or a way to avoid bottomless pits rather than a separate mechanic. The double spin dash thing is barely ever more useful than a regular one, and while maneuvering underwater is more fluid with Tails, it doesn't change the fact that it's a water section. If Tails was supposed to be a way to spice up the game, he's less cayenne pepper and more unsalted ketchup. Episode Metal are levels that you unlock by having the first game on the same system, and while these are some of the best in the game, it's not really worth it unless you already have or want the first episode. Basically, they aren't worth the extra money. The game's boss fights are barely better than its levels, and while they aren't really annoying, they're needlessly long, and like the rest of the game, is for the most part unremarkable. Sonic 4 Episode 2's best parts are the special stages that take inspiration from Sonic the Hedgehog 2. However, even these are too easy, and it's that easiness that makes them only more of an enjoyable pit stop in the way to a Chaos Emerald, rather than something you'd like to play again. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 is not a bad game, and while you're playing it, there's really nothing that would lead you to think that. However, except for a very small number of exceptional levels, the game doesn't stick with you at all. You won't have a bad time playing it, you might even have a good time, but you'll hardly remember that you did afterwards. I'm just going to say it again once for closure. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 gets a 6 out of 10.